Hey guys, and welcome to another Godot tutorial. In this tutorial, we'll be taking a look at interactive collisions on your tilemap. We'll basically be making sure that your tilemap collisions are doing something based on player input. Let's quickly have a look at the example of this tutorial and the specific challenge we'll be addressing. After that, we'll dive straight into the video. So this is the project we'll be working with. We got a river with water slides, and those water slides have collision shapes on their tiles within the tile set. Now we can't enter the water because of these collision shapes, but these collision shapes are also limiting us from accessing the bridge. And of course we want the player to be able to cross the bridge. That's the challenge for today. Let's get into it. So to start it off, let's first have a look at the bridge and how we can build the trigger when the collision shape on the tilemap has to turn on and off. So the bridge is an inherited scene or an instance scene from another scene. That will be this scene. Now this scene is set up quite specifically to make sure that the draw order of all the textures is in line to make sure that it looks good on the map. I'll get into how I exactly did that at the end of the video. Let's first make sure that collision shape on the tile map is interactive. So under the bridge we have two collision polygons, both which are there. They're basically keeping us from walking into the river once we're on the bridge. They're not very interesting, they're easy to add, and let's just hide them so they don't distract us. Now under the bridge I'll be adding a area 2D. That area 2D is going to be detecting collisions or detecting other bodies that are entering its area. I'll be using a collision polygon to draw this out. Now what I'm doing is I'm basically selecting or drawing the area where the player is able to walk. This will not create the ability for the player to access this area, but we will require information when the player is on the bridge and when the player is off the bridge, and therefore I draw the area where the player can walk. Now with that area in there, we now need to make sure it triggers when something enters. So to do that, we're going to go to the area 2D. We're going to go to the node and we'll be connecting the body entered and the body exited functions or signals. However, we can only do that to our bridge if our bridge has a script, so we first be adding that. So with the bridge script selected or added, we're going to go back to that area and we'll be connecting those two signals up. There we go. Now the thing is that these signals, they will hit as soon as a collision that it can interact with enters this area 2D. And the thing is that underneath this area 2D there are already collision shapes when the game starts. That's the collision shape of the tilemap itself, the collision shapes, the very collision shapes we're actually trying to turn off. So to make sure that this area 2D cannot interact with the collisions of the tilemap, I'll be making sure that this area 2D in the collision here in the inspector is not on the layer 1 where the tilemap is. We're going to put it in layer 2. And to make sure that the player can interact with this, we also have to make sure that under the player scene, under the player, we set collision to number 2. Of course, we also keep it in number 1, so it can keep interacting with the map, but we also want the player to interact with the area 2D of the bridge. So that's how we set that up. So we can save this, we can save that. Now under the script of bridge, we now receive these signals. So we now have to build the function somewhere where those signals are taken and are going to be directing the turning on and off of the collision shapes of our tilemap. However, we do not want to put that code here on this bridge, because then every time we copy the bridge or instance the bridge somewhere else in our game, we'll just be copying all those lines of code and we'll just be adding more drag and more stuff to our game, more than absolutely necessary. So we preferably have one place where we put the function that's going to be handling that turning on and off collision shapes, and we'll use this script to just pass through the signals that the area 2D gives. So this script is going to do pretty much nothing more than be a messenger. So he receives signals and then he's going to send out new signals. So we need two new signals, and let's just make this easy. It's going to be the signals to turn off the water cliffs and the signal to turn on the water cliffs. Now in here under the function body entered, that means that something entered the body, so something came on top of the bridge, and when something is trying to get on top of the bridge, then we want to turn off the collision shapes of the tilemap that are underneath. So we're going to say emit signal and we'll be turning off the water cliffs. And of course we do exactly the same under the other one. Then as soon as somebody exits the bridge, we turn those water cliffs collision shapes back on to make sure that then he can't get over the bridge, walk around and then get into the river. So this is our messenger script, where he's basically taking the signal from the area to D, and he's pushing the turn off and on water cliffs into the rest of the game. That means we have to connect that somewhere up. So yeah, let's get into that. And before we do, I do want to explain one thing on our area 2D. As you see, I draw this out a little bit further from the bridge. I'm not exactly hitting the shape of the bridge. I go a little bit beyond. The reason why I do that is that when the player approaches, you know what? When the player approaches, and let's say that the collision shapes of the tile map underneath are exactly equal with the bridge. They're probably not, but imagine they are. The thing is, the moment this player hits this area 2D and thereby collision shapes have to turn off. If you turn off collision shapes, or if you fiddle with collision shape, that always happens one frame later. And when that happens one frame later, you might get a little bit of stutter, a little bit of like drag, a little bit of, it feels like lag probably to the player. So I want to make sure that there's at least one frame between the player hitting the area 2D and the player hitting the collision shape of the tile map underneath, so that the collision shape on the tile map underneath has enough time to turn itself off. So that's why I've added these two sort of extra areas or extra extensions. That's the reason for that. So let's remove this player again, now that you know that, and let's get into the next part for connecting our signals up. Do you want to learn how to design and make games, or maybe you just want to learn more about Godot? Subscribe to this channel and don't forget to hit that little bell icon to make sure you don't miss out on any videos. Also, if you're curious about the game development projects I do myself within Godot, I live stream my game development sessions every Tuesday and Thursday. The link in the schedule description, all of that down in that description box below. Now let's continue. Now, to connect our signals up, we don't want to be connecting signals up one bridge at a time. Well, actually we do want to do one bridge at a time, but we want to loop through all the bridges at the same time if we can. And a way we can do that is when we add this bridge, the main node, when we add it to a group, and that's what we'll be doing. We're adding it to the group bridges. That means automatically every single instance that I make of this bridge will be in the group bridges. Now, when that is all in a group bridges, we can go back to the map, and on the main map node is where we'll be adding the script of our map. So this is going to be handling it. Under here, we're going to say under the function onReady, function ready, yes, we're going to say for bridge in, and we're going to get the entire tree with all the nodes, and we're going to get all the nodes that are in the group bridges, but then written correctly. There you go. Now with that, we're going to have basically an array of nodes, and in that array are all the nodes that are in the group bridges. So that means every bridge that we've added. And we're going to go with bridge, and we'll be connecting its signal up. Now we first have to say which signal do we want to connect up. Well, let's start with the turn off the water cliffs. So we'll say that signal. Then we have to say where do we want to connect it to? Well, we want to build the functions for turning on and off those collisions layers on this script. So we're going to connect it to self. Then we need to say which function has to play, which function has to activate the moment this signal is received. Well, let's not be creative here, and let's just call our function turn off water cliffs. That means, of course, that we need to have that function. So under here, we'll build a new function, turn off the water cliffs, and we'll just put a pass in there. Now we're going to do exactly the same, but then with the signal turn on the water cliffs, and that's going to be activating a function called turn on the water cliffs. Or easier maybe is even to copy paste this and just replace off with on over there. So now that we have our functions, it's time to, or actually, yeah, we have the activation of functions. Now we got to build those functions. Let's do that in the next part. So to build these functions, let's first have a look at the actual tile map and the actual collisions on the tile map, and what we can do with the parameters to make sure that our player no longer interacts with them. So the water cliffs are here under this tile node. And you can see that when I turn this off, you can see all the water cliffs are disappearing. So in the inspector, you'll see that this is also in a collision layer and mask, just like the player in the area 2D that we were fiddling around with just a moment ago. So what we can actually do, we can turn off this layer and this mask, thereby the player won't be able to interact with it anymore because it's not basically in any layer anymore. So to do that, you have to see, you'll see that the layer 1 is bit number 0, and that just continues on. So this is layer 5 bit 4, and this is layer number 20 bit 19. So you got to keep in mind when you call these collisions layers and masks in code, for the code they are an array, thereby starting with 0, but the layer starts with 1. So it's a little bit confusing, but definitely something to look out for. So what we'll do in the script is the moment we have to turn off those water cliffs, well, we need to get this node water cliffs, and we need to reference that a couple of times, right? So it's easier to maybe onReady create a new variable, onReady make sure that this variable is defined the moment the script or the node is finished loading. And we'll just say, okay, water cliffs is get node, and then we'll get the water cliffs. Like that, we can now reference this node by just using the variable, and we can say, okay, water cliffs, we want to set the collision layer bit, and we want to set bit number 0, layer number 1, and we're going to set it to false. You're no longer active. And we're going to do exactly the same with the water cliffs set collision mask. We have to turn that one off as well, and that will be false too. Now we need to do exactly the same under here, under the turn on the water cliffs, but then instead of false, we'll be saying you are true. And that should create the behavior that we want. Let's check it out. So here we are, we got the collision shapes. We still cannot enter the river, but as soon as we hit this area 2D, collision shapes are turned off. They won't be visible in the editor, but now you can cross the bridge. And just like that, we have created an interactive collision layer on our tilemap. Now there's one problem though, because this collision, this area 2D I should say, activates by any body entering it. That body could be an arrow or a projectile, a fireball, a gun bullet, a grenade, or another enemy. And what could happen is the player is fighting, and maybe he finds himself after the battle in the river. You'll be like, oh, that's weird, I got in the river. But as the battle is over, all the enemies are dead, all the projectiles have flown past the bridge, and now the player can't get out of the river because that collision shape is turned back on. So we only want this area 2D to activate the moment a player enters it. Or maybe you do want to make sure that it activates by an enemy so that the enemy can cross, but then you want to put everything in different layers. It's possible too. I'm pretty sure you can figure it out. Let's make sure that we work on making sure that area 2D only activates based on the player entering. For that, we're back on our bridge script where we have sent those signals, and I advise you to do this check whether the signal should be is the player, to do that as early as possible. Reason why is else you get signals being cast in your game to all kinds of nodes. There's all kind of processor capacity being used for those signals. So you better make sure those signals are not sent as early as possible. Thereby you create as little drag for the processor as possible. So what we'll be doing, I've copy pasted a little piece of code. So instead of just emitting the signal, we're going to say, okay, if not body is player, and we first have to define player. So just like we have defined the water cliffs earlier, we're now going to say, okay, onReady, we have a new variable that's called player, and that is equal to get node. And this player is actually, it's a little bit far away, because if you look at the tile sheet, the bridge is right here. So what we need to do, we need to get the parent of the bridges, then we need to get the parent of that's Y sort. And in the Y sort, we'll find the player. Now we can do get parent, get node as 3 functions after each other. What we could also do is do a double dot. That's the same as get parent. Do another double dot. That's the same as we get parent. And then we're going to get the player. Now, of course, that needs to be within quotations, and now we have the player node saved under the player variable. We do have to close that, of course, with a bracket. That makes sure that this doesn't error out anymore. So we're going to say that area 2D, that signal was being sent by the area 2D, that also brings us the body that's standard in this function. And the body is actually the node reference to the body that actually entered the area 2D. So the same could be the player. So we're going to check if the body is the player, and we first check that by doing an if not. So we do a reverse check. If the body entered is not the player, then do nothing, and else emit the signal. So that means we can turn that away, and we can pretty much copy and paste that in there. All we have to do is make sure that this is going to be emitting the signal, turn on the water cliffs. And just like that, we have made sure that this area 2D only reacts with the player and nothing else. Now, I promised you I would also show you how I've made sure that the draw order of this bridge is in such a way that it looks neat. And does it really look neat? Let's first have a look at that. So we're going to go back to this 2D. We're going to hide this area 2D for now. We don't need that currently. So we're going to save that. And under the tile sheet, well, actually, we didn't have to go there, but we're going to turn off the visible collision shapes as well. And let's have a look. This map is drawn in such a way that when I stand behind the map, you can see my feet are covered by the bridge because I'm standing behind the bridge. Now, when I walk on this side, it's hard to see, but I would be covering the actual side of the bridge. The character is walking over the bridge, is now standing in front of this railing. So you can walk sort of around the bridge there, but at the same time, this railing is covering its feet. So it looks very good, and here it is covering in front again. Now there's this very specific way how you can do this. I'll show you how. And before I do have to give my thanks to Bleed. Bleed is the creator of this bridge. I put a link down in a description where you can download this art set. It has 8 different directions, and it also comes with a wooden bridge. It's very beautiful art to be using in your game. It is free to use commercially under the CC BY 3.0 license. So get that if you want to, and make sure you reference him and give him the attribution that he deserves. So how we done that? Well, it's actually we are able to do this thanks to Bleed and what he provides. So first of all, of course, you probably already saw that the bridges live in a nested Y sort. So Y sort is making sure that the draw order between the player and all the other elements is being done based on the Y axis coordinate. So if you want to learn more about that, I got an episode on Y-sort and how you can make awesome maps using that. So maybe watch that one if you don't exactly know what Y-sort can do, but I'll show you now how I've exactly set up this bridge. So under the bridge scene, you can see that the Y0, I have positioned this bridge exactly where it's the walkway starts. So this makes sure that when the player is behind the bridge and his Y coordinate is higher, he's drawn behind this bridge, but as soon as he crosses this Y0 line, which of course would be the case if he's walking on the bridge, that he's been drawn in front of this bridge. But of course it gives us a problem because it also means that he would be drawn in front of this railing. Now what Bleed, the creator of this art set, does, he actually also gives you a PNG image or a JPEG image of the railing itself. So the railing itself, I've set the Y0 not to be at the back end, but to be at the front end. And in the map, there's actually 2 nodes in this bridge because this railing is just a copy on top of the original bridge. However, the Y sort of this railing, I gotta put it right at the right spot. The Y sort of this railing that's in front that I just moved is right there, and the Y sort Y0 of the bridge is at the back end there, and that creates that the character is able to stand in front of this railing at the same time behind this railing, because they're actually not the same images. And that's how the draw order makes sure that this bridge feels very real, and yeah, that creates the exactly the kind of visual drawing that you want to have in your game. So good luck drawing that. Get over to Bleed's site and make sure that you get that pack. It's some awesome art, and he has a lot more. Okay, that was it for today, guys. Hope you like it. If you do, smash that like button, hit subscribe. Don't forget that little bell icon to make sure you don't miss out on the next video. Also, again, if you're curious about the game development I do myself, head over to my Twitch channel, link in that description down. I'm live every Tuesday and Thursday. Also, since about a couple of days now, if you're watching this when it's straight after release, since a couple of days, I got a Discord server online. So if you want to ask me any questions, or you're just interested hanging out with other game developers that are doing Godot that might also be new to the scene, and you feel like you want to ventilate your frustrations somewhere, or just have a good question or want to contribute, feel free to hit that Discord server. Link also in that description down below. I hope to see you guys next time, and until then, keep on gaming, keep on coding. See you guys.